expectations precede Budget 2018. A clear focus on the rural sector and an attempt to increase jobs is widely expected. But let's not forget the middle class. The salaried taxpayer who has been bearing most of the load of taxes also has a list of expectations from the union budget. And to speak on how the finance minister can increase disposable incomes for salaried employees, we are speaking today with Kuldeep Kumar, partner PwC India, and Suresh Sadagopan, founder Ladder 7 Financial Advisories. Welcome, gentlemen, to Primetime Debate this evening, where we're speaking about Budget 2018. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Kumar. Is there any real hope that there would be a significant change either in tax slabs or in exemptions, looking at the fact that there is a challenge to maintain fiscal targets?
Absolutely, Tamanna, you are very right. While that, the fiscal deficit is, controlling the fiscal deficit is one of the agenda of this government, and which was also indicated by the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister recently in the media. And also the oil prices are riding. But nevertheless, still the expectations from this budget are very, very high from the salaried class. And this is due to, several facts. And one of them is that, this may perhaps be the last full-fledged budget of this government. So some of the populism may find place in this budget. And second is that there are several long-term reforms which this country has seen, be it the GST, be it giving incentive to the digitized transaction. So we are a lot of economic activity which perhaps earlier was taking place outside the economy will get into the formal economy. So all these long-term measures which has been taken are likely to push up the collection of the government. And then we should not forget the demonetization, and this saw a great support from the public at large. So I think, keeping all these factors in mind, perhaps this is the opportune time even for the government to cheer the public at large. But now how he will do the, this job, that is only the time will tell. But there are several expectations this year from the budget, from the salaried class, which are there.
Okay, Mr. Sadagopan, if you could highlight some of those expectations, because we have had small increases even in the last budget in tax slabs. Some exemptions maybe will be increased. But, every time there is a small increase, we celebrate it. Effectively, per person, it doesn't turn out to be much when you compare it to rising costs and inflation. What can be done beyond, just a piecemeal or a token increase?
Yeah. So, Mr. Kumar has summed up the whole landscape very well. The government can potentially do something for the middle class, and the government should do something for the middle class. In view of whatever they have undergone in this last 1 year, they have stoically borne a lot of the initiatives from the government, and the middle class is now, it's payback time for the middle class. So there are two portions to it. One is in a falling interest rate regime, the middle class is expecting something of a kind of a shock from the government. I can only probably speculate as to what can come in the budget. So something can come in the budget, something may come after that. So there are 2-3 things in the context of the low earnings which people are getting because of the interest rate reduction. One of them is, one of the things which people very much like to contribute is the public provident fund. However, the public provident fund per person is restricted to something like 1.5, and there has been a clamor for some time now that limit has to be either increased or, most probably it can only be increased. It cannot be made like NPS, any amount of contribution. So that could be one thing which we can probably look forward to maybe some level of tinkering. The second thing is regarding the tax-free bonds. It was a very, very popular vehicle, and it gave a sustained income for people for a long period of time, like 10 to 20 years. So in this period of falling interest rate, I think that is one of the things that people are really looking forward to, especially people who are at the end of their working lives and who want a sustained income. The third thing which people are looking forward to is pensions and annuities are currently taxed. So if you have been contributing to NPS or any other pension, or you are receiving a pension from the government or any other entity, so that is going to be taxable today. And there has been there has been a clamor for pensions to be or annuities to be made tax-free. So these are probably three things, at least a couple of them may see the light of the day, is my hope.
I want to come to the point Mr. Sadgopan made, and I really like that quote. It's payback time for the middle class. And Mr. Kumar, you also highlighted that, tax base has increased. That's the claim from the government. GST collections have also improved this month, right in time for the budget. How much and what in real terms, effective terms, can the government do to put more money in people's pockets to push that spending power?
I think one of the easiest way to do this would be that they increase the basic exemption limit. Now, obviously, the question would come to what extent, because the last year, this has not been raised for the last couple of years. So the basic exemption limit may be raised for 3 lakh rupees. And then for the salaried class, which I talked about a short while ago, so they have a very high hope from this budget. And there have been several demands from this section of taxpayers which have been pending for the last so many years. Just to give an example, until 2004 and 5, salaried class used to get this standard deduction. And reintroduction of the same, is something which the salaried class is looking for. Then the medical reimbursement, tax-free medical reimbursement, and currently the limit is 15,000 rupees. And this limit was set sometime back in 1998, 1999. So this requires a revision. You take the LTA, the present day's job you see, they're quite stressed. Yeah. And presently the LTA is exempt in a block, twice in a block of 4 years. Why not to make it on a yearly basis? And then the journeys which are covered are the within India travel is covered. Why not to make the international travel also eligible for the LTA exemption? So so I think this can very quickly put up the more money into the pocket of the taxpayers. So I believe that one of the theme, if you will see last year what happened. Those who were earning between 50 lakhs and 1 crore, they were slapped with the additional surcharge of 10%. I mean, those who were earning more than 1 crore, so they already are, paying the surcharge of 15%. Now, if you will see the government, one of the things which government has also been trying to address is the gap between richer and poor also get bridged up. So if not all the taxpayers, but particularly, the lower income group, say somebody, someone who are earning less than 10 lakh rupees, absolutely some sort of a, they need money in their hands, and something would definitely, it looks like, would come into the hands of those people. But those who are in the higher group, it still, it still is a challenge in a way that, although if you will see that in the presently, a lot of people are getting the notices from the tax authorities, and be it if they are having any overseas investment or they are having done any cash transaction in the past. So the government has a whole lot of information. Now, based on this information, the tax authorities are verifying those transactions. So what government is trying to do is that the tax base increases, and then which puts up a best case for a reduction in reducing the tax rate. So when the government will get this confidence, we're absolutely going to see that some sort of a tax relief getting into the hands of the common man. And a few more things I want to talk about. For example, the ATC limit, which is currently set up at 1,50,000. And you will see that there are several items which are covered therein, be it the contribution to the provident fund, be it to the contribution to the PPF, your LIC premium, etc. And even the tuition fee or even the principal repayment of housing loan is also covered therein. So presently, you will see the setup, someone who have taken a housing loan or who is an employee and contributing to the provident fund. So most of the portion of the saving limit is consumed by the provident for repayment of a housing loan. So this also merit for increasing the limit from 1,50,000 to 2,50,000. And we should not forget that India still does not have a very solid social security. NPS is there, the provident fund is there. But I think that encouraging the taxpayers or the people at large to save here the long term as well is one of the need of the hour which the government need to think about.
I want to talk about long-term capital gains tax as well in this context, and I'll come to Mr. Kumar first on that, because there is talk that long-term capital gains tax, could be increased from 1 year to 3 years. In fact, there were recommendations made to this extent, and this comes at a time when, after demonetization, a lot of money has come back into banks. As a result, a lot of money has also been invested, a significant amount in equity-linked schemes, etc., or back into the share markets. would this be advisable? What kind of an impact would this have?
Well, you really touch is very sensitive actually, and this perhaps maybe, when my personal take on this is that, for example, the elections are going to take place in 4 states which are, dominated by the farmers. And that section, of the society is definitely, the government is going to do something for them. Now, if they have to, do something for them, from where they will bring in the money? And having said that, this, long-term capital gain, whether it is increasing the holding period presently from 1 year to 2 or 3 years, or probably, putting up some sort of a taxing those capital gains, or even exempting them up to a certain threshold, for example, so that the lower income group who are getting attracted to the market or who are investing into the mutual fund, so their return does not get impacted. And in the present scenario, if you see that the interest rates are declining, and so it is very important that the disposable income in the hands of individuals needs to go up. So while those who are investing in the equity markets, the higher income group individuals or the rich individual, if I call them, so it may possible that it may be, it may happen that probably government think of taxing them at some sort of a rate, so that whereby they garner some money to extend the benefit to the poorer section of the society.
Okay, Mr. Sadagopan, do you think it's a good idea to tinker with the LTGC at this point?
Yeah, my view is that, see, as far as equities are concerned, it is to be seen as a long-term vehicle. I mean, as financial advisors, we suggest equities to be invested with a 5-year time period or more. So, and if that is really the case, there is no real case of a long-term capital gain after 12 months. On one hand, as far as debt instruments are concerned, we are taxing after 3 years. I mean, long-term capital gain kicks in after 3 years. There is, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that if people are really looking at equities as a long-term vehicle, they should not really matter at all. So why should people keep on trading, and why should people invest today, and 1 year down the line, why should they take out the money? My opinion is that it should not really affect people who are true investors.
Okay, I want to talk a bit about affordable housing, and Mr. Kuldeep Kumar touched upon it when he said that everything is bunched into ATC, including your principal amount of your house repayment, etc. But looking at the push for affordable housing, Mr. Suresh, what should the government do to really incentivize people?
I'm going to answer your question slightly tangentially. The only problem as far as affordable housing is, probably this affordable housing may work in certain other places apart from Mumbai. But in Mumbai, I mean, within the city limits of Mumbai, there is not much really available below 1 crore. So it is off the limits of affordable housing. So that will be true for maybe other A-class cities as well. So affordable housing, they probably have to really look at what is the definition of affordable housing for especially the metro cities, and accordingly craft incentives for metro cities. Probably there is a 2-tier structure which they can think of. I don't know what they can actually do for metros, but I think they can think of a 2-tier structure, or simply increase the slab of affordable housing up to 1 crore.
Mr. Kumar, there has been an interest subvention scheme in the past to push affordable housing, and that has, there's no real need to wait for the budget for that. That push has gone there. It has led to more projects, in the affordable housing category being created. But is it enough at this point?
Well, I think that, the 2 things I want to talk about that. Now see that, government also talked about the smart cities, and today all the big metros like Delhi, Mumbai, or all the capital towns, they are having a very heavy pressure of population because of the employment opportunities or the other opportunities. Now, definitely, keeping in with the cost, etc. In the 2 days time, the scope or what is covered under the affordable housing, the capital limit may be increased. But if you will see that practically how many projects are actually getting completed on time. So although the RERA has been, introduced, and then, government has taken several steps to push up the builders to deliver the possession on time. Now, if you will see in the tax scheme to give incentive to the taxpayer, now presently the limit is 2 lakh. If you are buying a house and if you are, occupying yourself, the interest repayment you make, the limit is 2 lakh. Now, any interest which you pay in the pre-construction period, I mean when the builder is constructing the house, the interest is accumulated and that is allowed as a deduction in 5 equal installments beginning from the year in which the construction is completed. Now, but when this accumulated interest as an installment is allowed as a deduction, this is also counted along with the other normal interest which is payable for that year within the overall limit of 2 lakh. So in my view, I think that the fact that now the builders are taking little longer to complete the project and there is a higher interest charge, so I think it would be good that the government should increase the interest limit from 2 lakh to 3 lakh rupees. And second is that if you will remember the last year budget, the government has put a cap of 2 lakh on the loss which you can set off from house property from the other sources of income. So anyone who is having more than one house, so even if that house is not for example rented out, or now there is a trend of a nuclear families and the families are staying, children are staying in one house and the parents are staying in another house. So this has really caused a very hardship to those individuals who are having more than one house. And then there is also, if for example, if you are staying in your own house and during the year, for example, you are transferred to another location, so where for part of the year you have rented out your house, so according to the current provisions, you end up paying taxes on a notional rent for the period even when you are staying in your own house. So I think two things should be done. First, the notional basis of taxation should be done away. So where one is having a house where the parents are staying, so those should not be unnecessarily paying tax on that. And second is that the limit of capping it 2 lakh, that should also be done away with, because ultimately it is all impacting those individuals who were earlier investing into the housing sector. So even those who are having money wanted to invest in that sector are not investing in that. So I think these measures, if you are taken, that actually will give a push. But I agree with you that affordable housing, this is also one of the dream of this government or Prime Minister. So something would also happen in that direction.
I'm just going to round off now this conversation with a top 3 wish list from both of you, and I'll start with Mr. Sadagopan. What are the top 3 things you would like to see which will sort of ease the burden for the salaried middle class, perhaps put more money in their pockets?
Yeah. So one is the hike in the standard deduction from 2.5 lakhs to maybe 3.5 lakhs. The second is ATC limit from 1.5 lakhs to maybe 2.5 lakhs, or they open up another subsection under ATC where insurance or principal of the housing or some other portions go outside of the typical ATC limit. So in effect, I mean, we are going to see some increase in that. That's what we are hoping for. And the third thing which I'm really hoping for in the interest of the investor is tax-free bonds making a comeback this year. So those are the top 3 things I would wish for.
Mr. Kumar, what's on your list?
Well, increasing the basic exemption limit and, increasing the medical reimbursement limit, or introducing the reintroduction of the standard deduction for the salaried class, absolutely going to cheer them up. But I think one thing which we have not talked about, that is the, something for the senior citizens. This is the category which is the worst hit. And the interest rates are declining, and they cannot invest into the risky investment to improve their or increase their return on the investment. I think giving a deduction for interest up to 1 lakh for them, and as well they should also be given some sort of a deduction for their medical expenditures, such as routine medical expenditures, such as consultation fees, physiotherapy, which will give them really some sort of a money in their hand to maintain their day-to-day living. And the second thing, the third thing which I want to talk about is that NPS, if you see, presently it is exempt, the corpus is exempt one-time withdrawal at a time of retirement up to 40% of the corpus. So while you can withdraw up to 60%, I think this limit of 40% should also be raised to 60%, so which will really give a level playing field to the NPS vis-a-vis the investment into the Provident Fund.
All right, we leave it at that, but thank you so much for speaking with us. Kuldeep Kumar and Suresh Sadhakupan listing out what they hope that this budget will bring for the salaried middle class, and in a budget which is expected to focus on rural sector, on jobs, very crucial areas. Let's hope the finance minister will think of this section of society as well. Sanjay Leela Bhansali's controversial movie Padmavat released across the country today. Reports indicate that there has been 50 to 60% occupancy in theatres which have chosen to show the movie. Reviews claim the movie is dedicated to the valor of Rajputs. This is ironic because groups claiming to represent Rajputs have been on a rampage over the last few days. One group has announced a reward for maiming the lead actor in the movie Deepika Padukone. Yesterday, school children in a bus in Gurugram were surrounded and had to hide under their seats because of protests. Moviegoers are being protected by the police. The key question is, why has this situation come to this stage? And what does it say about the state of law and order in our country? What does it say about ease of doing business in India? Can we truly project ourselves as an attractive investment destination the world over when goons are allowed to run amok? To speak on this, I'm joined now by Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Thank you so much, Ms. Shaw, for speaking with us on Bloomberg Quint this evening and on this subject, very importantly, because we need to take the conversation beyond which party did what and why these people have a problem with a movie. What are your comments on what is going on right now?
Well, it's obvious that rumors, misunderstandings and misperceptions have led to this very ugly situation. And we know very clearly that fringe elements have taken advantage of it and have really stirred things up. It's most unfortunate. I think a lot of lawlessness has emerged in many, many parts of our country. And I think the Supreme Court has definitely tried to enforce a law in the country which needs to be adhered to. And I only hope that, in the next few days we will see this huge ugly scenes that we are seeing in the last few days, disappear as people see the film, as comments come out about the reviews. I'm sure it is going to finally just, disappear.
Well, perhaps until the next movie or until another situation, possibly quote-unquote hurts the sentiments of another section of people. Is it really about this movie, Ms. Shaw, or what is in this movie, or whether it's a good movie or a bad movie? Isn't the question today on whether state governments can uphold the law or choose to uphold the law?
Well, I think, it is about, people expressing viewpoints and not being able to basically have a rational discussion around what their views are. I mean, if you don't allow various expressions of film and theater with some artistic license, I think, it's not a very good situation. So I think there needs to be a discourse on this particular subject. I think the country definitely needs to allow movies and theater to function with at a certain level of liberal views. And I, for one, just believe that, we should not allow this kind of, high-handedness of any group or any viewpoint.
I want you to tell me your view in the context of what happened in Gurugram yesterday, where a bus full of school children was attacked. There are videos doing the rounds about it. People have been arrested in connection with this incident now. This is an area which has a large number of MNCs, BPOs functioning. A lot of global companies have their headquarters as well over here. What kind of an impression does it put out of India and spots like this when we're trying to invite more investment into our country?
Well, these are incidents which are about, politicizing and renting mobs. I don't even think those people even knew why they were attacking any vehicle for that matter. And these kind of stray incidents do happen. I don't think, it's going to have a huge impact on, the companies operating in Gurugram. But certainly I think the government needs to make sure that there is law and order enforced all the time. I think that's what it's about. And I think every state government has to ensure the safety of its citizens. And this is where it is, where there is an urgent need to make sure that law is enforced.
There are a lot of people who, and of course, there's so much commentary and opinions on what is happening right now from every side of, the debate. But there are a lot of people who are also commenting and contrasting India's big pitch in Davos right now with what is happening on the streets in several parts of the country or in some major states. Do you think that that is an apt or fair contrast?
Well, these days, if you see all over the world, we are seeing ugly incidents, whether it is incidents of racism, whether it is incidents of fringe groups, such as what we are seeing in India. We're seeing a lot of these kind of very, very ugly incidents across the world. I think, it doesn't really basically, impact day-to-day business, but I think it's very important that countries need to create the ambience of safety for various people and its stakeholders operating in its system. I think that's where it all begins. I think if you look at what's happening even in the US or any other part of the world, there are these kind of horrible, ugly incidents. I mean, the whole Gurugram incident with the school children was shocking. And this is not something that we should tolerate in our society. So I think it's about law enforcement. Again, I come back to the role of the state and the state governments to ensure safety and law and order.
Sure, absolutely. And how much does that feed into ease of doing business? Because, India has improved its ranking on the ease of doing business. We've all celebrated it. Does that ease of doing business perhaps keep the filmmaking and the movie exhibition business out of its ambit now?
I don't think we should take such harsh, views of the matter. I do believe we need to, mature into a much better society. This can only happen, again, I go back to my earlier statement, when the state governments focus on safety and law and order. And as far as ease of doing business is concerned, it has to do with other regulatory matters.
Yes.
And there I do believe that there are a number of regulatory steps that have been taken, which are making, business much easier to go about in this country, because I know that the government officers themselves are very, very helpful in resolving many issues that may come in the way of doing business in a smooth way. So I, for one, believe that this is not going to come in the way of business as such, because business is about investment, business is about markets, business is about large opportunities. And if India can really get that together, I don't think this is going to come in the way. But equally, I think we can't allow it to suddenly keep increasing. I think this is the time to nip it in the bud.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Time to nip it in the bud, says Ms. Shaw, and perhaps that process should have started when the first stone was pelted on the sets of what was then called Padmaavati.
Nine to 5 job, अरे 5 to 9 job, भाग दौड़ all the time job.